Great also to have the company of writer and commentator Candice Holdsworth. First up, we are going to be just getting a little bit of recap on the issue on obesity, because, you know, we're told, oh, it's going to collapse the NHS and all these terrible stories with 3/4 of us apparently are going to be overweight or obese by 2050. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Also, obviously going to be talking about Donald Trump's announcement about midnight our time overnight that he has paused all US military aid to review it to Ukraine overnight, just days after his row with President Zelensky. Now, the move comes after the US president launched a fresh attack on social media on the Ukrainian president, who had said, he said, won't be around very long if he does not end the war soon. This after Zelensky at an interview said that the peace is a very, very far away still. Meanwhile, the US Vice President J.D. Vance has done a Fox interview criticising European leaders, saying, well, they're publicly backing Zelensky, but he says many of them privately are calling for the war to end and for this deal to be signed. Plus, we're going to be talking about her, Meghan Markle. Her new Netflix show, With Love, Meghan, is finally online. Just from the clips, it just looks so beyond cringe, I can't even imagine. The show includes advice from the Duchess on how working parents like her can make mornings more fun. Luckily for us, our royal correspondent Rupert Bell is going to watch it, so we don't have to, and he'll be giving us his thoughts later. Plus, Britain is paying around £180,000 every hour to switch off wind farms because there's nowhere for the excess power to go, because the battery storage doesn't exist, and even any attempts to create it, we're talking about trillions of pounds. This has already cost taxpayers a whopping £252 million in just the first 2 months of this year. But don't worry, renewable energy is the future, everybody. 11:05 is the time. Big thanks once again to Candice Holdsworth for joining us today. Let's just come back on that obesity conversation, because look, you're a mum of 3. We're constantly told we're going to get fatter. It's all because of the supermarkets and the manufacturers, the advertisers, TV. Everyone is bombarding us with adverts about basically unhealthy fast food, and basically it's poor people who have had the brunt of this and it's not their fault. That seems to me to be the message.
It's very patronising, and it infantilises people, because people are grown-ups, they're able to make good moral choices, and they're able to be responsible, and we should hold them to a higher standard, and they should hold themselves to a higher standard. I mean, you know, we're talking about things like the breakfast clubs, for instance, that they're going to be providing in schools. It's something like a piece of toast or some cereal. That's perfectly achievable for a parent to give
If you can't afford a slice of bread for your kid and a glass of milk in the morning, something's going horribly wrong with your budgeting.
Of course it is. No, people are not passive. They're able to make good choices. It's the same with the weight loss jabs.
It is infantilising people. That is my big worry. It really is, just basically saying, like, you're not capable of dealing with this, and everything always ends up, let's ban this, let's ban that, ban those adverts. But of course, we middle class people can make those wonderful choices because we're at Waitrose and they've got all that lovely fresh fruit. Have you been into a co-op in a local area, a local sort of, council estate area? They've got vegetables. There's plenty of vegetables. People make different choices. I think it's a perfectly rational choice. If your life is pretty rubbish, you've got a rubbish job, you're on benefits, you've got 3 rotten kids, your bloke's left you, life is terrible. I think choosing to have a burger and chips for dinner because it tastes a damn sight better than broccoli and fish is a perfectly rational decision, and people have got a right to do it if they want. I just don't want to have to pay for it when your health problems come up.
See, there's a lot of that. Sometimes it can be a mixture of things. So you sort of have this middle class snobbery where it's sort of like, ugh, look what they're eating, gross. I'd never eat that.
But if it was sourdough pizza, it's okay.
Yes, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't judge. Of course you judge, and we're all the same. All people are the same, and we should hold ourselves, everyone, to higher standards. Yeah. What's good for me is good for you. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you have. We all have to eat healthily. Yeah.
Well, again, we don't all have to eat. I think people have got a right to be fat if they want.
Yes.
I really do.
Yes.
I think we're all. But again, I don't care what you do with your own body. If your kid is fat, I'm going to shame you.
Yes.
I think you're a bad parent. End of. I'll say it like it is, as you know. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. What I mostly want to hear from you today, though, is about Donald Trump pausing all US military aid to Ukraine, even the stuff that's in transit right now, after Zelensky said peace was still very, very far away. What is your reaction to that? Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text on 87222. Get in touch on X at TalkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message, but it's free to leave a message for us on YouTube. Now, We've been talking about this this morning. I have to say, I mean, I'm absolutely flabbergasted by this decision. Perhaps not surprised by it. It comes when it does. It's an interesting development in the last 20 minutes or so. The Prime Minister of Ukraine, not the President, the Prime Minister, this is Denis Shmyhal. I think that, I hope that's the correct pronunciation. He says that Ukraine will continue diplomatic work with the US via all available channels and insists it remains ready to sign a minerals deal with the US. That was something Zelensky went to the US to do. That's what they were going to do. We're going to have that meeting in the Oval Office. They were then going to have a lunch, and then he was going to sign the mineral deal, and then they were going to do the press conference. And then he was basically summarily shown the door after that Oval Office exchange. But the Ukrainian Prime Minister says that Kyiv will do everything to keep cooperation with the US at previous levels, saying US military aid is critical and helps save thousands of lives. Now, that's the first official reaction from Ukraine after Donald Trump's pause to US aid. We know that the British are trying to sort of straddle both sides while offering lots of succour and support to Ukraine. What should Keir Starmer's reaction be to what Donald Trump has announced overnight?
Yes, well, I think he should continue on playing the sort of role he has as a bridge, trying to bring the two sides together.
He's done a pretty good job so far,
I think
actually.
so.
We're not big fans of Starmer.
No, but I think as journalists, it's never our job to set up ourselves up as like a critic or a fan. We respond to the facts.
It's my job, you know. I'll give my opinion, but I mean, I call it as it is, you know.
Yes.
If I think Donald Trump's in the wrong, I'll say it. If I think Keir Starmer's in the right, I'll say it.
Yes, and I think you better serve people in that way. What Lord Kim Darroch said is very interesting. It's not a crisis.
He's the former our ambassador to Washington, isn't he?
Yes, it's not a crisis just yet for Ukraine, but it could be in a few months. So let's hope that they can make diplomatic manoeuvres before then.
But it's interesting, we had a caller earlier pointing out, he says, you know, that Russia is winning this war. I mean, Russia in no way is winning this war. Ukraine isn't winning this war, but Russia isn't either. Now, a lot of people are saying, and this is a classic sort of Russian troll farm on social media line and being echoed by the likes of Elon Musk and others online, this idea that this forever war. Elon Musk tweeted in the last 24 hours, Zelensky wants a forever war, a never-ending graft meat grinder. I mean, yeah, what he really wants to do is to send his people to die. I mean, this is just abject nonsense. I mean, it's actually immoral for him to say that. This is what Vladimir Putin wants to do. Vladimir Putin cares not a jot about anyone but himself. I'd be surprised if he even cares about his own children, to be honest with you. He is, as you said earlier, he is unquestionably a psychopath and a murderer. But the idea that Zelensky has said, if you give us that guarantee, a NATO membership, some sort of guarantee, we will, you know, I will resign as Ukrainian leader because the work will be done. He's a wartime president. He can leave power knowing that his job is done. I mean, I'm sure he's got an ego. Hasn't everybody got an ego? Hi, Donald Trump. But that tells you everything. But this mineral deal is not worth the paper it's printed on without any US military guarantee.
Look, Vladimir Zelensky has to have an incredibly strong sense of self to survive what he's survived.
Not get on that private jet that he was offered by the Americans back in February 22.
Yes, and I think to see him attacked, and I think that's why so many people immediately felt so much sympathy for him, because they realised the mental load he must be carrying and how hard it must be to sit there in that room and just be delegitimised in the way that he has and isolated.
To be
in
called
the way
the dictator.
Yes. And Donald Trump denied that he'd said it, even though we all know that he said it.
I mean, yeah, you literally said it on tape, mate.
It is very difficult. You are dealing with a highly mercurial US president. I mean, you pretty much have to manage his personality. It's difficult to adjust to that sort of environment, but we have to.
Well, that's it, and it's very interesting to see people like Elon Musk and J.D. Vance just basically kowtowing to it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was very solidly behind Ukraine a couple of years ago. Yeah, things have changed. I mean, who doesn't want the war to end? Of course we want the war to end. People wanted the Second World War to end. They wanted, you know, Vietnam to end. I mean, on what terms is the answer? And when Donald Trump basically is saying you need to take a mineral deal, there'll be no US guarantee, I'm cutting your aid, basically going to leave you to your own devices to bring you to the table, to basically give away your territory to your Russian aggressor, with no guarantee that we will come to your aid if they take more territory, when, as Zelensky pointed out very reasonably in the Oval Office on Friday, last time they did that after the invasion of Crimea, Putin reneged on every single thing that he'd promised he would do. His word is not worth the paper it's printed on. He's not trustworthy. That, again, was, if you watch back the whole 50 minutes or so of that exchange, that was the point when Trump got angry. There was a point when he was questioning the trustworthiness of Putin, to basically say, this man you claim is really trustworthy, you've got this great relationship with, is not actually proven. He's proven not to be trustworthy. That is when Donald Trump reacted, because I think he thinks it's an insult to him and his judgment. Yeah, it is, because you're trusting a guy who's absolutely not trustworthy. But at the same time, relaxing economic sanctions is what he plans to do on Vladimir Putin. He has not asked a single concession from Vladimir Putin. No, you'll have to agree to NATO troops. You'll have to agree to, that you never take any more territory and guarantee that, the Ukraine exists as an independent nation state. He has not asked one thing of Vladimir Putin, but he's basically saying to Zelensky, just give up your nation state, give up those parts of Ukraine that have been taken over by Russians. He hasn't even demanded the return of the thousands of Ukrainian children abducted by Vladimir Putin. I mean, not a single thing. You've just got to ask, whose side is he on? He says he's on the side of peace. He's on the side of Vladimir Putin.
It's very unclear what they want from Putin. I mean, I saw an interview with Marco Rubio where he said, we don't know if the Russians even want peace, but at least we have to try. And I thought, what are you talking about? Other people have tried to make peace. They have tried to do that. It's this revisionist review of history that I think that the MAGA right has. It's even when they talk about World War II, for instance, there was that big conversation that blew up about a podcaster who was calling Winston Churchill the arch villain of World War II. They think that they can just impose what they think on reality, and you can't.
The stuff that I've posted a few tweets about this in the last few days. The responses I've got, are frankly, are stark staring insane. They are so ill-informed, ignorant. There's a difference between having an opinion on how you might end the war. That's different. That's fine. That's a debate. We can always open to debate. And how many more lives will be cost by this option or that option? That's a reasonable debate that people should be having. What people are spouting, the troll farms, the bots, the MAGA people who are just totally and utterly imbued with this madness, is utterly historically ignorant. I mean, they're stating basic facts that are made up, but they call them facts. I mean, you should watch this documentary by this guy. I mean, literally, like the first 2 minutes, the guy has said 10 things that are incorrect, that are provably untrue. I find that terrifying. And a lot of the comments that are made are, you're fully paid up by the Western media, in cahoots with, and again, who am I in cahoots with? As if I haven't got a good track record of standing up to bloody authority when I think they're in the wrong. I mean, good God, I was spied on by my own government over lockdown. But you're never pure blood enough on any of these things, and if you're down that MAGA rabbit hole. But all I know, as I said to the former man in Washington, Kim Darroch, a little bit earlier, if Donald Trump and J.D. Vance turned around tomorrow and said, apologies, guys, if Donald Trump turned around tomorrow and said, actually, Putin is the aggressor, admitting facts, he's the dictator, we're going to give Zelensky whatever he needs, in fact, we're going to put US troops on the ground to oust the Russian troops from the Donbass at least, and we are by your side, those MAGA people would be cheering him on, saying this was a great decision.
Yes. I think it's very unhealthy when a political movement cannot handle disagreement or dissent. It always bodes ill.
It's the same as climate change, mad lunatics, the trans ideologists won't discuss it. You must be, you must be evil if you give me a different opinion.
And they become ever more zealous over time, which is what I've noticed with the net zero movement, making ever more crazy demands, like don't have children, they're bad for the environment. This is what happens.
I mean, Elon Musk is making up for it, as indeed are you. I mean, pretty much, at least, hey, at least your kids know their father. Hey, there's a small point worth making.
But I also see it as contributing to the amount of redheads in the world, because we've got to keep that number steady.
You're doing your bit. Can we also just come back on the latest mad story about our inability to ever actually deport anybody in from this country, even if they've got no right to be here and they've committed serious criminal offences. The latest, an Iraqi cocaine dealer who convicted, jailed. He can't be deported to Iraq because he's too westernised to be deported. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
These human rights decisions are rightly inviting a lot of scrutiny and are clearly going to need reform, because it is so beyond common sense. I mean, he can clearly make that claim in a court.
Then we can all laugh at him.
It's legal to do so, but it's not what anyone would think was fair and just in any way, by any true measure of what people think is right in the world.
I mean, he's lived here for 24 years. He's got a British-born daughter, or maybe you should have thought that before you dealt drugs. He was jailed for more than 5 years for dealing cocaine. Getting 5 years, you've done some serious cocaine dealing. But again, it's yet another judge. Apparently he would face persecution in Iraq because he would be seen as westernised. I mean, I'm really sorry. I think the judges are the problem now. I don't think it's the law. If you read the actual laws about, for human rights, if you read Article 8 of the Human Rights Convention, there's nothing about it that would stop us from being able to deport this man. Nothing at all. It's the judges. I think we need to have a massive clear out of our judges.
Yeah, they're making the most liberal interpretations, and it's true, there's a sort of conflict brewing.
I think they're misinterpretations now.
It's possible. I mean, there's going to be a conflict brewing between elected politicians and judges.
Yeah, well, I know I want to win.
Yes.
Our elected, accountable politicians, even when they make very bad mistakes, are still preferable to unelected, unaccountable people making decisions on our behalf.
I totally agree. And they don't like it. They want to be seen as impartial, but no.
They're not impartial.
Of course they're not.
I mean, they're not impartial at all. It's basically like having sort of Tony Blair as every judge, to all intents and purposes, isn't it?